In this video, I have a different spin on how you can really take your forehand to the next level by having the perfect forehand technique. Most of the time when coaches are talking about the forehand, they leave out little elements that make the forehand and can take the forehand to the next level. Not only that, there's one element that I think a lot of coaches aren't talking about and focusing on enough, because you could also have the perfect take back and unit turn and all those things. And if you're missing this one element, you can do all that for naught. You'll have the most beautiful looking forehand that never goes in the court, and you'll wonder and think that, oh, I'm not doing anything right. Something must be wrong, and you're missing that element that's right in front of you. That's why I think this video is important, and I'll share that one element with you at the end of the video. So make sure you watch all the way to the end. So let's get started. The first overall concept that I want you to understand is your forehand is like a car. And you're probably thinking, like, a car, we're talking tennis. It's like a car because what are the three most important parts of a car? It's the steering wheel, it's the engine, and it's the wheels. The steering wheel is what directs the car. The engine provides the power, so you can take that steering and go in the direction you want, but you can't go anywhere if you don't have wheels. How that relates to your tennis forehand technique is this. How you swing is gonna direct the ball. How you use your body is the power that you're gonna need to provide to that swing to direct the ball. And then how you use your footwork is gonna be really how you get to the ball, but not only that, how you can maintain that power throughout the swing and relate those back to this main concept. And you're gonna see how it makes a huge difference in your forehand. So the very first thing you need to understand to have a great forehand is the grip. And the grip I recommend is the Eastern or semi-Western grip. And the reason being is that it's gonna give you the most stability at contact. It means that when you hit the ball, it doesn't feel like your racket's constantly having to twist and turn. And to get the stability, it's really about holding your hand out here and pushing on this pad right here. This pad right here will allow you to, when the ball hits the strings, you won't have to grip really hard because it'll push up against that pad. What you want to think of is taking that pad, holding your racket out where you make contact, and putting that pad behind. And as you push on the strings, you should feel that pad being pushed against. The semi-Western grip is just putting it a little bit more under, not completely under, but just a little bit, so you're not only behind and slightly under the racket, which still allows you to push up and feel that resistance. If you have a full Western grip, it puts your hand completely under, but you don't get that resistance, but you feel more resistance coming up. That's why most players with a very Western grip hit a ton of topspin, but they have trouble penetrating the ball. Now let's get down to those specific techniques. First thing we want to do is start in a great ready position. This allows you to be in an athletic position that allows you to move out to the ball quicker, but it only works if you do a split step. You want to make sure when your opponent's making contact with the ball, you're landing, you can take that energy and redirect it in whatever direction you want. And if you're not doing this, you're going to always be a step slow. And when it comes to the swing, the first thing we want to think about is the unit turn. And the unit turn is simply turning my shoulders, and I think of unit turn and release. Now, to do this unit turn, what we want to do is use our left hand a lot of times to push the racket back. And there's a lot of different versions of it, where you see some players hold on really long and then let go, and then you see players let go right around here. What the other thing the unit turn does is it starts to rev the engine. So you can see how this relates back now. It revs the engine because it starts coiling your body. And the way you use your engine in tennis is you use your body. This is one big myth that I think a lot of players have, is they think, hey, I want to create more racketed speed, I'm going to swing faster. And that's why when you watch a pro play, it looks so smooth and effortless, and they're creating massive amounts of acceleration. And part of that is because we tend to focus on what's moving fast, which is the racket. And we look at the arm and like, oh wow, the racket and the arm is moving fast, that's what they must use. We don't go one step deeper, which is what's the arm attached to? It's the body. And when you watch the pros, you see them rotate their body, which now pulls the arm and the racket, and that's how they create effortless power. And that's how they rev their engine. That's how they get that acceleration. So by doing the unit turn, you're separating your shoulders and your hips, so they're twisting against each other and they're storing energy. Now, with the storing of energy, again, we're focusing on the engine. Now what we really want to do is get the racket ready to go. So what we need to do is drop the racket under the ball to create some topspin. And so something you want to think about is when the bracket's below the ball coming up, you can create topspin. And this is why a lot of players are taking this racket back like this, separating, and then dropping the racket. Now, one key thing that you probably might be asking, you probably might be seeing on the court is, Kevin, I see so many different ways of dropping the racket. And I hear this word a lot, lag and snap, and like, how do I lag and snap? Here's the thing, don't try to lag and snap. Stop trying to lag and snap. Focus on relaxing versus lagging and snapping. So what I mean by that, if I just relax my hand and then I start rotating my body, look what happens. I didn't do that. I didn't make this go down. I just relax, and as I rotate my body, my hand's gonna lag, which now shows you that you don't have to worry about that so much. Now, you'll see different types of takeback where some players are like here, some players are like here, some players are here. It's personal preference. The more your racket head is facing forward, the more it's gonna lag and snap. But here's the thing you have to consider. It lags and snaps at a cost. The more your racket head has to go back and come forward to do that lag, the better your timing has to be. Or a lot of times you'll see players that have this big kind of like preparation like this, play a little bit deeper to give themselves more time to time the ball. Compared to players like maybe a Federer who takes it here and has the racket here, he doesn't play that far behind the baseline. So it really depends on your level of timing. But either way, it's not a necessity to have an unbelievable forehand. You can take the racket back just like this and have a great forehand. The next really big part is the rotation of the body. And this is where I think a lot of players get lost. After the racket drops, you want to focus on how you're going to turn your hip past the ball. By turning your hip past the ball, you're going to really send the arm and the racket flying and accelerating through the ball. If you notice, my hips are facing this way and they finish facing this way. And the contact's right here. If you also think about it, it takes care of the follow through. So as I'm swinging, I'm just going to relax and pull the racket around. I think a lot of times players are so concerned and coaches are so concerned with finishing up here, but it kind of doesn't make sense if I'm pulling my racket around here that I'm going to finish up here every time. If you're hitting maybe a topspin shot where it comes up, my racket's gonna probably come down. If you're hitting a flatter shot, maybe it'll go through. But the follow through should be very natural. The last part is the wheels, which I think this is where a lot of coaches stop. They say, oh, you've done the follow through, great job. You have a great forehand technique. It doesn't stop there because you have to understand how the footwork plays into play. So we're gonna go over the footwork here. But if you want a deeper dive, watch this video here. So the biggest thing is your footwork allows you to be balanced and rotate. And rotation is the engine. It's the power for your forehand. So if you don't have the right footwork that allows you to rotate, you can't have great power on your forehand. And if you can't be balanced and rotate, you're probably not going to be able to control your swing. So this is now how it's so important, how so many players watch videos and like, oh, I've got the 3 steps to having the perfect forehand, but you miss out on the footwork and you go out and practice and you don't understand how you can't hit the ball like the pros. So what stances do you want to use and what stances do you want to avoid? So the stances I'm going to talk about really quickly are the open stance and neutral stance. Those are the stances you probably want to use. There is a semi-open and there are tons of variations of both of these stances that you can mix in for different shots. But the overall arching concept is open, neutral. So the open stance is where your body's more open to the court and allows your hips to completely rotate, which means you can rotate and generate that power, especially when you're on the run. A neutral stance is where you're stepping more into direction of your shot and you're still allowing your hips to rotate. And this is great for stepping into the court or taking the ball early. Now, the stance you want to avoid is a closed stance, meaning where I'm stepping across trying to hit. Now, bingo, my hips can't rotate, I can't generate power, and I probably won't be balanced. Now, you could pull it off if you pull your back foot around, but that's so much more complicated. If you just stick to having the open and neutral stance or a semi-open stance, which is halfway between, which allows your hips to rotate, you're going to be in 10 times a better situation. Now, you're probably saying, Kevin, I'm waiting. What is that one thing that you said that I could do everything right? Because still, you could do all the things I just talked about. Perfect. And the ball could still go in the net or long. And you're going, what? I thought this was the perfect forehand technique. Well, it is now. The last part is this, the racket face. Yes, we talked about the swing, but we haven't talked about the racket face. The racket face at contact is the sole thing that will send the ball in whatever direction, too high, too low, too left, too right. Now, this is the thing, most players don't focus enough on the racket face. They're so focused on their swing and everything else and how I'm dropping, I'm lagging and snapping, and they're lagging and snapping and making the racket face open or too close, and they think they're doing something wrong. If you focus on the racket face, which is the only thing that touches the ball, the strings at contact, and sends the ball in direction, that by itself can make you make the ball. Meaning that I could do everything wrong, hit the ball like this, and have the racket face right, and it'll go in the right spot. Now it's time for action steps. We're gonna focus on how to take your forehand to the next level by focusing on the most important thing, which is the racket face. If you wanna learn how to use your body, go watch this video because it's gonna really accelerate your ability to use your body. But I'm gonna assume you know how to use your body already. And this action steps will really help you understand how to use your racket face so you can pretty much hit any ball you want. So the very first thing we want to think about with the racket face and the path at contact is making sure that at contact, my racket is going to send the ball where it's facing. And this is the thing, you want to trust where the ball's going, not what you're feeling. If you trust what you're feeling, you might be deceiving yourself. I've had many experiences where I've been in matches and it feels like I'm closing the racket face a ton to make balls, but I guarantee when I go to slow motion video, my racket's like this. And when I was missing balls, my racket was like this. And so don't worry about how it feels, focus on what the ball's doing. That's the most important part. So the very first thing I'm gonna do is take a ball and I'm gonna start with the racket face really close and I'm gonna swing. And you're gonna notice how the ball goes really low. Now I'm gonna open my racket face and be on the other extreme. I want you to do these exact same exercises so you can feel how this feels. Open it, boom, and you can see how the ball goes, and maybe you heard it hit the fence. Now I'm gonna level it out so I get the ball to go probably out 4 to 5 feet above the net. And that's the ball I want. Now from here, if you understand how to use the racket face, now it's time to optimize it by throwing in my body and my stance. Now we're gonna focus on creating acceleration and then adjusting my racket face. So since I'm gonna have my racket back here, I'm just gonna focus on turning my hips and using my body. Now the first ball I hit there, I started to close my racket face a little bit so it didn't go so high. But here's the thing, where I want you to understand. My swing got under the ball just a little bit and really accelerated. That's why it went through the court. Now, if you understand the overarching concept of the racket face and the racket path, now what I'm gonna do is set the racket a little bit lower and come up a little bit and open the racket a little bit more. And you're gonna notice a different ball. That ball goes higher over the net, okay? And by making that ball go higher over the net, it's just a small adjustment. And this is how you can have the perfect forehand technique, because you're able to hit any type of forehand you want if you understand these things. If I want to hit an angle, I just need to make sure my racket face isn't too open and I come up sharply on the ball, which is going to create an angle. If I want to hit more of a lob type ball, I can come up on the ball but open the racket face a little bit more and it's a lob. You're starting to see the levers you can start pulling to have the exact forehand shot that you want to create at any time when you're on the court. You just need a little bit of practice. But the key is this. Everything we do on the forehand is to optimize one thing, which is the racket face at contact. It's meaning that we want to make sure the racket face is in the right angle at contact, which is going to send the ball in the right height, and we have the right path leading up to contact. Everything else, your footwork, your engine, how you're using your body, is to accelerate that and optimize that. But if you don't get that right first, anything you accelerate and optimize is just gonna be probably crap if it's not the right one. Meaning that if your racket face is too open and you're using your body, you have your wheels, and you're creating tons of racket speed, that ball is gonna launch over the fence. But if you have the right racket face at contact and you do that, you're gonna have a great forehand. Is this the same as all the other forehand videos, or did you learn something new? I wanna know, and if I left something out, please let me know, because there are a lot of things with the forehand. It's not just 1, 2, 3 steps. There's more intricate things about it. And I hopefully can be a resource for you to learn how to take your forehand to the next level.